Welcome back to the Village Build series. In this series, we're going to be building 5 themed houses in the village and also a town hall at the top of the hill. So far, I've built part 1, which is the fisherman's house, part 2, which is the blacksmith's house, and in today's video, we'll be building part 3, which is a farmhouse inspired build. We're going to be turning this piece of land right here into this. Plan and land. Now this is the most important part of any build project. This is when you really come up with what you're going to be building. First things first, you need to prepare your land. So you can see here that that's exactly what I did. For this project, I decided to split the land up into 3 different elevations. Elevation number 1 at the top of the hill, the highest elevation, will be where the house is. Elevation number 2 in the middle of the hill will be where the farm is. You can see it's going to wrap all the way around the house. It's going to be really nice. And elevation number 3 at the bottom of the hill, this is where I decided to dedicate part of the land for this build to continuing the village theme. So you can see I brought the village road around the property towards the water, where we will be building a little dock later on. Alright, the land was prepared. Now it is time for the plan. Check it out. This is my blueprint. Now for this build, we're building a farmer's house, which I felt like was kind of an outdoorsy type of building. For me, that means that I picture an A-frame roof structure. You can look those up online and find some inspiration just like I did. And then also you can see the tower in the back. We're going to line that with core wood beams to make it kind of look like a cabin, so we can get even more outdoorsy type of vibes in the build. And here are the measurements for the blueprint. For the heights first, we have 3 meters, 6 meters, and 14 meters. And then for the lengths and the widths, we have 6 by 8 meters and 6 meters by 10 meters. The cool thing about this build is that the dimensions were decided by the roof. I wanted this A-frame structure to look very unique. I didn't want all the roofs to just meet in the same point in the middle. So you can see they're all made out of 26-degree angle beams, yet they meet all at different places. Also, I've almost forgot to mention that the core wood poles for the tower in the back, those are supported on the inside by iron poles all the way to the top. Alright, walls and floors basic. Here we're just going to put up the basic shape for the walls and the floors, no details yet, because then we can see the structure, what it looks like with walls and floors, and then we can decide where the details will go. First things first, I wanted to get those log cabin vibes going on the tower, so I started adding core wood beams. Now the thing about this is I wouldn't recommend just stacking them on top of each other. Instead, I'd recommend doing it like this. You really want to stagger your core wood beams. If you stagger them, you get kind of a bricklaying pattern and they look much better. After I finished up putting up the walls for the tower, I decided to put on the floors, and then of course, while I'm doing floors, I went ahead and put in the floors for the rest of the house. You can see I also decided to go ahead and open up the doorways. Now we've got a very basic shape for the house going. Now it's time to do the walls on the rest of the house. So for the walls, for some reason, I did something a little different than I normally do. And it honestly didn't work out, but let me explain what I did. And maybe you guys can, avoid the same mistakes I did. You can see for the walls here, I'm just building a nice little frame. But what I'm doing is I'm going ahead and deciding where the windows should be. Normally for this basic section of walls and floors, all I do is I just fill in the walls completely, and then later on I come back and I can see the full wall, and so it's easier to decide where I want my details, like my windows. But I don't know, for some reason this time I just decided to already decide where these windows would go. But I'll tell you, almost all of these windows did not make it into the final design. All these windows on this wall right here didn't make it in, and most of the windows on the first wall didn't make it in. So, it's really just personal preference, but for me, it seems like when I go ahead and I decide right off the bat where I want things to go, it seems like those plans usually end up changing by the end. So you can see here the final thing that I wanted to do for this walls and floors basic is fill in the stone floors out here in the outdoor eating area. The only problem here was that the path leading around the front of the house was a little bit wider than the stone floor, but it worked out. I just placed 2 at a time. Alright, now it's time to put on the roof. So for the roof, we're using 26-degree angle roof pieces because of course we used 26-degree angle roof beams. So of course that also includes the tower up top, which up here we're actually using 45-degree angle pieces instead of 26. Alright, next I decided to add some details onto the very basic roof. So first of all, I added some vertical lines going all the way up, but you can see we've also just passed a horizontal line that was going through the roof. That horizontal line is actually where the roof meets up with the wall of the house. I wanted to leave that in, so to kind of balance that and add a little bit of symmetry, I put the same horizontal line 1 roof tile down on the top. Alright, so of course we need to bring this detailing up to the top of the tower, so that's what I'm doing here. You can see I am just framing out the corners really quick, and then that new frame that I built, I'm actually adding in some horizontal lines. Next, we're adding in my favorite detail on a roof in Valheim, and that's just a little bit of extra trimming. You can see I have to place a beam here. This is a temporary beam so that I can free place my trimming. Now for free placing this, all you want to do is shift click and then just bring it down a little bit lower and outwards from your existing roof trim. Oh man, so this part is so cool. Let me show you guys. You can see I'm adding on a whole nother section to the outdoor area roof. The reason I decided to do this was because I wanted to cover more of the outdoor area, but also because I wanted this roof to be more than just an A-frame roof. I wanted it to be, a very unconventional A-frame roof that has different parts that do different things. So you can see it sticks out one from the house, and it just adds, I think, a lot of character to the whole build overall. And of course, with new roof means new roof trimming. Honestly, I have no idea why I placed a ward up here at the top, but later on I come back and I get rid of this and I add a cool little feature, and I'll make sure to show you guys that when I do it. Okay, walls advanced. Now we're going to add all of the details to the walls. First things first, I wanted to get started with the tower. You can see at the top of the tower, I decided to add a 1x1 meter railing, and then on the sides of the tower, I decided to add some windows. You can see I have one built. Now I'm going to show you how I did it. For these doors right here, a lot of the times you get multiple snapping points. You can see I'm getting 3 right here actually. What you want to use is you want to use the one that sticks out the most so we can get a window that looks like it sticks out from the build. After you place the door correctly, you want to go ahead and make sure you're placing a nice trimming around it also correctly. Make sure that it's, sticking out from the build and you're not getting snapping points back in the wall. After that, I added a little roof peak on the window just because I feel like that looks kind of realistic for a window setting. And also another thing that I feel like looks realistic is to add a nice little trim around the bottom. And after that, I wanted to add one more window to the tower over here in this nice open space. So you can see for this one, I decided to go with a cage wall on the inside. It's a little bit smaller than the other windows as well because I'm kind of cramped in this space. You can see I did another free placing of beams on the outside. Really cool. This one actually lines up really nicely with the roof, except for the fact that I kind of misplaced it a little bit, but it lines up really nicely with the roof, which is cool and kind of worked out just really well in the end. And yeah, of course, we're going to finish it up with a nice little roof peak on the top of the window. Once I finished up the windows, I wanted to add the centerpiece on the top of the tower. You can see I used 1 meter beams here to find the center of the tower, and then I just took some wooden poles and built them up so they're sticking out the top. Now I go around to the top and I add on a beam, and from there I can work on my centerpiece. Now for the centerpiece, I really just wanted something very simple, so I just basically turned each 1 meter beam twice, making a nice little circle, and then I added on top one final 1 meter pole. Alright, so now we are done with the tower walls. We're going to move on to something pretty cool, and this is building a supporting pillar for the extended roof over the outdoor eating area. For this, what you need to do is decide where you want your pole to be, and then you can see I'm just rotating a regular 2 meter pole twice and then just free placing it into the previous pole. It's very simple. You'll get used to it very quickly. Once you place the last pole in the first layer, it becomes super easy, because now for the second layer, all you have to do is place your poles directly onto the ones that you've already done. And now you can see we have a really nice pillar for supporting our outdoor roof. Alright, so now it's time to get started on the walls themselves. Now check it out, you can see I've already got a few things built. It took me so long and I tried so many different things that I figured the best way to show you guys how I did this is to actually just deconstruct it. Alright, so let's get started with this window right here. So this window, you can see on the inside of the wall has iron cage pieces and crystal walls, and then the window itself is framed out. Next, what we're going to do is actually free place another frame on the outside of the window. This window will end up being 3 layers deep by the time we're done. This right here is the second layer. So check it out, on top of the window, we're actually going to create a slant which matches the roof up above. And then we're also going to, on the bottom of the window, use the nice half wall pieces to fill in the bottom area. You can see I got rid of the 1 meter pole here and replaced it with 2 meter poles just to remove some of those junctions and keep it looking nice. And then you can see on the bottom, the final detail for the second layer is just filling in that bottom trimming. Now onto the third layer, we're going to be first of all adding the nice roof trim that I like to add on all of my roofs. There you go. And then also we're actually going to support this roof trimming this time with some nice 2 meter poles. You can see I'm actually even bringing it all the way down into the ground over here. Alright, so we'll be building more on the wall in a little bit, which will kind of finish up this window piece, but for now, the general shape is there. The next thing that I built is the little deck right here, and you know, this is very simple. It just sticks out 1 meter. Nothing really important here except for the fact that the roof has been expanded to accommodate the deck, which I think is awesome. Next, we have the door, which is the same thing as the window. You saw me look at the window there. That's because I used the same 3-layer window design over here on the gate, except for, you know, the bottom where we have a gate there instead of some wood paneling. Now you can see here over on this window, I'm doing the same type of design. We're just free placing an extra frame on the outside of the window and then filling in the bottom with some wood paneling. Over here though, we don't really need a 3rd layer at the moment, so we're just doing 1 extra layer, which makes it 2 layers. Alright, at this point I really wanted to break from the walls, but we'll go back to them in just a minute and I'll show you guys a secret to building wood walls that is amazing. You can see here all I'm doing is building a little 1 meter frame over top of my chimney, putting on some 26-degree roof panels which overlap, and then of course just adding the same trim which we've added to all the rest of the roofs with those 26-degree angle beams. And then I finished up the chimney by adding in some iron cage walls at the top, and then also by adding in some wooden poles and beams here and there, just to add some extra design elements to an otherwise kind of very boring large stone structure. Alright, so now it's time to go back to the walls. Now for the walls, I want to show you guys something that is probably one of the best tips I could give you for building wooden structures in Valheim. You can see what I'm doing here is I'm adding on a horizontal line to the bottom of my wall, and I'm doing that with dark wood beams. Now what this is going to do is it's going to fill in these large open spaces in your walls. And also you can see that this is very easy. You can even go to the inside like I'm doing here and place them all in about 30 seconds. But that's the thing though, this is the easy way to add a trimming to your wall. It's quick and it's cheap on resources, but there is a more advanced way which I want to show you in just a moment. You can see up here on the tower I added this same trimming, and this is the only place that I'm actually going to keep this trimming because there's no room to do the advanced method. So the advanced method involves creating an entire second layer to our wall. You can see I'm free placing a pole right onto the existing corner spots on the walls. What we're doing here is we are creating an entire another layer to work with on the walls, just like we did with the windows where we had a 3-layer window. So what you want to do is, like I said, go to your corner pieces and place a nice free placed pole on the outside going in both directions. And then you can see here what I'm doing is I'm just going to the inside really quick. I'm taking out the basic trimming layer. If you want to just use that, that's the easy method. Of course, you can do that. But check it out. This is how we're going to use this second layer of our wall. You can see we can do a lot of different things. I'm adding in a nice baseboard of wood going all the way around. And there's also even another line above that, which you could add. But you'll see in just a moment that what I'm going to do here is I'm going to keep this second layer very simple. I don't want to overdo it. So you can see I tried a couple things, but now I'm coming back through and I'm taking out everything except for the baseboard on the wall. And this is why, this is what I really recommend, because you've got so many options. Once you create a second layer onto your wall, you can do so many things with it. But personally, for this situation, I just wanted to keep it simple. You can see even here on this window on the side, I had to come and add a 3rd layer now because the wall itself is sticking out a little more. So everything now has to be adjusted to stick out a little bit more. Another nice example of why this second layer on your walls looks really nice is over here by the doorway of the patio. You can see I've now got a framed out doorway, which just makes the whole wall here look so much better. It was a plain flat wall, and now you've got a lot of depth. Here on the back walls as well, we'll be taking advantage of this second layer that we now have to work with. You can see up here on the top, I had a lot of open flat space. So now I'm just filling it in with some horizontal lines, which they actually make sense now because the wall itself is framed out. So we can put these lines, which will go right into the frame. Alright, so now it's time to build the farm. Now the farm actually ended up being really cool for this build. First of all, it wraps all the way around the house, which is really nice. But also, secondly, we've got different elevations within the crop field. You can see 2 little areas where I've already kind of decided there might be a good spot for some raised elevation. And this is just going to add a lot of character to the field and just create, something that's just more than a regular flat field. Before I could get to any building on the field itself, I had to make sure that the staircases that were needed kind of fit into the area. So first of all, I connected up the house to the main road. You can see I just used stone stairs and then I added a nice little hand railing. And then of course, I connected up the house to the crop field. I did the same thing here with a stone staircase. And what's cool about these staircases is that they actually, in their spots, they're going with the same angle with the roof. So it really just adds to the A-frame structure, more of the same angles going in the same directions. You can see I did end up removing this little corner piece here and just kind of really connecting up this area, widening it out a little bit, giving you a little more room to work with. And then after that, I built a nice little fence around the crop field. You can see I'm actually taking the fence and placing it a little bit into the ground because I want to keep this fence nice and low. After that, I cultivated the field and grew a bunch of crops. I have no idea why I did it in this order, and most of these crops would end up dying in the next 20 minutes of building. So yeah, if you're playing on a survival world, I highly recommend waiting to grow your crops until you're absolutely done with the field. Now it's time to work on the little elevated sections of the field. You can see I added a stone staircase. You can also see how screwed up the crops are right here, but it's okay. I'll fix them in a little bit. Next to the stone staircase, I added in one of these half walls and just kind of framed out this small area. After that, I added a frame around the top of the walls, and then I went over here to the other section and I built up the same very simple frame. I added the same staircase going into the little field, And then I started adding the final details onto these areas, these little raised areas. I used 1 meter poles and the small cage wall pieces, and then I decided to add some lighting to them as well. I needed some lighting out here in the crop field anyway, so I thought it would look really nice on the corners of the raised areas. And then for some reason I decided that now was the time to add 2 sconces to the front door. Couldn't tell you why, but now they're there. And now we can move on to the final outside detail, which is the connection to the water. All of the houses in this village project are meant to have some sort of connection to the water. You know, they're kind of built on these little islands almost right next to the shore. So I just thought it would be cool to make sure that even the farmer up at the top of the hill had a way to access the water. So you can see I just built a nice little cool little kind of like curving staircase right here, connecting up to where I extended the village road to at the very beginning. And at the water, I just decided to add a very simple dock and also one of those logs that you can sit on just to create a nice little cozy area here. Alright, so quick fix for the village. Now, long story short, I love what this looks like so far, these first 3 houses, but I feel like they are a little bit close up to each other. I want them to be close, so in the end we can get a picture of it all, but not too close. So what I'm going to do to fix this is I'm actually going to remove the workyard in the blacksmith's house, and what that's going to do is it's going to put a nice green area in the center of these 3 houses. Alright, so check it out. Here is the revised area in between the 3 houses. I think it's very simple. It's not that big of a difference, but it does help your eyes a little bit kind of differentiate the different properties. Alright, that is that for the build. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you stick around for like 10 more seconds, you can see some final cinematic shots of everything. Thank you guys so much for watching. More coming soon. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, as always, have a good one.